Hello and welcome to this presentation. The title of this presentation is the time series analysis of F0 in Papuan Malay contrastive focus. My name is Constant Galant and this is joint work with Nicolaus Himmelman. To refer to these two cars in English, I could say on the left I see a red car and on the right I see a green car. An utterance such as this is said to be produced with contrastive intonation in English and in related Germanic languages. The idea is that the contrastive element, the color green in this case, is produced with prosodic prominence. The prominence is given by a pitch accent that has shifted from its default location, so the head of the NP car, to the adjective green. In this way, car gets de-accented. So this accentuation strategy to highlight contrastive information is not necessarily shared with other languages. So let's make a small typological round. For example, in Romance languages, no such accentuation shift is observed, but rather shape differences in the F0 contour with even some regional differences. In Bengali, this type of utterances is prosodically produced with post-focal compression and differences in the contour shape as well. In Chikewa, in Korean, speakers tend to insert prosodic boundaries on either side of the contrastively focused word. To further extend the typology of contrastive intonation, we also have to look at other areas. So studies on trade Malay varieties, for example, spoken in the eastern part of Indonesia, they lack a systematic study of focus. Contrastive focus, being just one of the categories, is poorly covered in the available literature. So the trade Malay varieties, they are spoken in areas far apart from each other and share linguistic features to a large extent. There are, however, also differences to be expected given the different historical developments they underwent. We don't know that much about the prosody of the trade Malay languages. The limited work available is often based on grammars and generally does not investigate prosody at all or only in an impressionistic way. The prosody of three trade Malay varieties have been studied more in depth. These include Manado Malay, Ambonese Malay, and Papuan Malay. So the available work can be summarized as follows. Common prosodic characteristics of these languages is a phrase final F0 movement. Several shapes have been observed, but the rise-fall appears to be dominant. The exact function of this movement is still a little bit unclear. In Manado Malay, subject-object-verb focus is reported to be signaled in phrase final position by F0 shape differences. In Ambonese, no acoustic differences for narrow focus context were found when analyzing speech that was elicited specifically for this purpose. The final rise-fall pattern in Ambonese was analyzed as a phrase boundary tone, being loosely aligned to the segmental content. In Papuan Malay, phrase final F0 patterns turned out to be the largest in size compared to all other phrase positions. Although a rise-fall was dominant in this language as well, the pattern appeared to be affected by word stress, which is dominantly penultimate. So it remains to be seen whether, where, and how contrastive focus is marked prosodically in Papuan Malay. So to further complete the typological literature on the prosodic marking of contrastive focus, this study concerns Papuan Malay. We aim to find out the extent to which semantic contrasts are prosodically marked in this language. As we have seen from the literature, a systematic investigation is lacking for most related languages. In this study, we investigate specific contrastive focus conditions in different phrase positions. It has to be noted that at this point that Papuan Malay makes frequent use of focus adverbs, which might eliminate the need for additional prosodic marking of focus in this language. So we therefore start with the null hypothesis, which is there's no prosodic marking of focus in Papuan Malay at all. Since we've seen the strategies in Manado Malay, however, we can hypothesize that some form of marking is possible and that it might be limited to phrase final positions. So that will be our working hypothesis. We investigated the research question by means of a production task, in which participants were requested to describe picture pairs. The members of the pair appeared on either the left side or the right side of the screen, and participants were instructed to use a specific matrix phrase to describe the pictures. For example, here we see the matrix phrase in Papuan Malay at the top and the two pictures at either side at the bottom of the screen. In this specific example, the idea would be that the participant says, on the left side I see a blue candle, and on the right side I see a blue cow. I will explain the three variables we manipulated in the design of this task. So we had three variables: phrase type, phrase position, and focus. Phrase type. So this refers to whether the described picture appeared on the left or on the right side of the screen. We distinguish the antecedent, that is the picture on the left which was described first, from the target, the picture on the right that forms the contrast with the antecedent. Then phrase position. So we made use of two matrix phrases in either half of the experimental task. In one matrix phrase, the picture descriptions were produced phrase medially. So, for example, I see the blue candle on the left side and I see the blue cow on the right side. Whereas in the other matrix phrase, the picture descriptions were produced phrase finally. On the left side, I see a blue candle, and on the right side, I see a blue cow. And then we, of course, also manipulated focus. So, the type of contrast between the two pictures. That contrast either concerned the shape, to which the noun referred, or the color, to which the adjective referred, or both shape and color, which we called fillers, to form a baseline condition. So for the double contrast fillers, there is no specific focus on either the noun or the adjective. Here you can see how the three variables work out in the actual task. In this example, the type of contrast concerns the noun, as the shape but not the color is different between the pictures. For this picture pair, the participant was supposed to produce picture descriptions in phrase final position, as you can observe from the matrix phrase where the antecedent is the description before the comma and the target is the description after the comma. The reason why both antecedent and target phrase were taken into account in the study is to account for the possibility of forward-looking contrastive intonation. Forward-looking pitch accents are observed in other languages, and theoretically the speaker could express a semantic contrast only on the antecedent and not on the target. In particular, because participants see both pictures and therefore the complete contrast during the entire phase of sentence planning and production. So we carried out this task with 24 native Papuan Malay speakers, and we made use of common colors and objects to obtain fluent productions. The total number of utterances in this task was 50, fully balanced for phrase position and contrast type. And as you can see in the table here, all words referred to shapes and colors and had two syllables with stress on the penultimate syllable. Once we collected the data, we took measures of F0 to analyze the prosody. We did this by taking time measures of the F0 contour produced on the noun phrases consisting of both the noun and the adjective. The time series measures were taken from 20 points in the syllable with equal time between the adjacent points. This type of data is particularly suitable to analyze using generalized additive mixed models, also GAMS, as they provide a more accurate measure of a contour compared to static measures such as F0 range or mean F0. In order to apply GAM on F0 data, we need to account for the high degree of autocorrelation in F0 measures. This means that the correlation between two adjacent measurement points is far from random and thus highly correlated given the nature of an F0 contour. To account for this, we reduced the number of measurement points used in the statistical analysis to 10. We also added a random smooth by contour to the model. This random smooth would have consisted of 2,400 levels, one for each contour collected from all participants. However, this severely increases the computational cost of the model. Therefore, we reduced the levels to a subset of 10%, so 240 levels. We also included an AR1 model to further account for autocorrelation. So the full model looked as follows. The response was F0 in semitones as measured in 10 points per syllable, and the interaction between focus, phrase position, and phrase type as fixed vectors, and the random smooth by contour. The complete outcome of the modeling would consist of difference plots. The difference plots show for each condition how the contours in these conditions differ in a pairwise way. This number of plots, 24, is too high to show here, and that's why we only provide the model contours in each of the 12 conditions. That is what you see here. So the figure in this slide shows the model F0 contour on the Papuan Malay noun phrases produced in this task. The panels on the top show the contour of the antecedent phrases, whereas the panels at the bottom show the contours of the target phrases. On the left you see the antecedent and target produced in phrase medial position, and on the right you see the antecedent and target produced in phrase final position. In each plot there are 3 lines corresponding to the focus conditions, so fillers, nouns, and adjectives. To read these graphs you should also know that Papuan Malay noun phrases have the order noun adjectives, so with an adjective being the final word in the noun phrase. Given that there were no effects of focus, the different contour lines show a high degree of overlap in all plots. So this brings us to the summary of the results. As we could see in the graphs on the previous slide, there were no large differences in the focus conditions. We can observe some smaller differences at different points in the contour, however no structural differences that match with which word referred to the contrastive information. Concerning phrase position, we can see that F0 reached a level position, phrase medially, where phrase finally we can see 2 different contours. In antecedent phrases they ended with a rise, whereas in target phrases they ended with a fall. This finding is not unexpected given the continuation versus finality in the antecedent and target phrase respectively. The same effect is therefore also observed for the vector phrase type in phrase final syllables. Based on the results, we can now conclude that F0 does not mark contrastive focus in Papuan Malay. The only effect we could observe relates to the phrase final boundary tones, which appear to signal continuation or finality in ways we would expect in many languages. There is, however, one more crucial point that deserves discussion. So as you can see here in the picture again, the pre-final syllable in all our experimental conditions was produced with a rise. This concerned the first syllable of the adjective. While in most conditions there was a rising trend or a clear rise in the final syllable, in one condition the final syllable showed a clear fall. This was the case for phrase final targets. Instead of a falling contour throughout the noun phrase, in this condition we can still observe a rise for the phrase final targets. This seems to indicate a requirement of the intonational grammar of Papuan Malay. So it seems that the phrase final rise-fall movement, which is commonly observed in trade Malay languages, also plays a role in Papuan Malay. Particular similarity is found with Ambonese, where this movement was also analyzed as a boundary tone. A tentative difference, however, seems to be the alignment of the rise-fall in phrase final targets. This appeared to be relatively stable in Papuan Malay, although for Ambonese only loose alignment was reported. Further alignment analyses are planned in future work, so for now I would like to thank you for your attention, and please do contact me for any further questions or comments.